In this video, we're going to look at how you can use highlighters to improve your extended writing skills. Now, from my experience, they can have a huge impact on the progress of a student, because what you need to do is you need to break down a mark scheme for them, and you need to make it more accessible so they understand exactly how they need to structure their answer, what skills need to be demonstrated. Each of these skills then can be represented by a different coloured highlighter that students can use to self-assess the quality of their work. I cannot stress enough the importance of this because the visual element is very powerful. It makes for a great self or peer assessment activity because it allows students to take ownership of their own work. So, we're going to look at a few examples. The first one here is GCSE history. The question says, which of the following was the more important reason? So when you see a question like this, you have to evaluate. So the question is now, when you have to answer a 12-mark question, or when you are evaluating, what are the different skills you need to demonstrate? What will the examiners be looking for? So if you pull apart the mark scheme, you will see that you'll need to demonstrate knowledge and understanding of the topic that you're asked to talk about. You need to explain or analyze your argument, and then you'll have to evaluate, so make a judgment and answer the question properly. So what you could do is, now you know the skills you need to demonstrate, you can use different colored highlighters to make sure those skills are being demonstrated in enough depth or in enough detail. So for example, when we do the question, you need to highlight all your facts and figures, all your knowledge and understanding of the topic in blue. Because you have to explain or analyze your argument, you can highlight all of your effect connectives in orange. So there should be 3 or 4, I tell my students. And then because you need to evaluate, you're making a judgment, you're answering the question properly, so you need to include words like however, or to conclude, your most important reason, things like the short term, long term. All of these words will help you evaluate, so you look to highlight all of those words in green. So this is an example of a typical answer. Just bear in mind the student will write this on paper mostly as opposed to have it typed up. But once they have this done, you then need the students to reflect, okay? Ask them. So anywhere you've demonstrated knowledge and understanding, any facts and figures, highlight it in blue. Anywhere where you've explained and analysed and used your effect connectives, highlight them in orange. And anywhere where you've evaluated, highlight that in green. So what you should do is you should see an answer like this. Okay, so you'll see some orange, you see some blue, you see some green. So you can see there are elements of the answer which are good because the student's structure is not bad. However, is it good enough? So you get the students to reflect on the quality of their answer. Okay, so ask them, do you think you have enough blue highlighted? Do you think you have enough orange? Do you have enough green words highlighted? All right, so how do you think you can improve? Looking at how many oranges you've highlighted in a paragraph, do you have 3 or 4 of those connectives done? If not, what does that tell you? Students will straight away, they'll be able to reflect, all right, and they'll know. When you're evaluating, how many greens have you included? How can you include more? Can you include the word however? Have you included it? Have you talked about the short term or the long term? And like I was saying, students will straight away, they'll reflect because they can see from the colours that whether or not they're doing what they need to do. All right? And this is a little input from the teacher. All you're doing is guiding them. You're helping students to reflect on the quality of their answer. And what the students straight away should be able to do, they'll know, well, if I only have 2 oranges, okay, I need to have 4. So they'll go back and they'll try to improve it. If they have very little green, they know straight away that they're losing evaluation marks, and they'll go back and they'll try to evaluate a bit more. Same goes for the blue. If they don't have enough blue facts and figures, enough knowledge demonstrated, they know they'll have to go back over their answer and improve it to demonstrate better knowledge and understanding. So what you should see is, second time round, all right, you should see an improvement in the quality of their answer. Now bear in mind, this is a kind of a proper answer, but the point is that you should see more oranges, you should see more blues, you should see more greens, which you do here. All right, and students will have made those improvements themselves to improving in the quality of their own work. And all you've done is guided them and guided them using the kind of the colored highlighters to demonstrate the different skills. So it's also, if you're a student watching this, you need to remember this is a very transferable skill. Okay, you can use this technique in all of your subjects because you're demonstrating the same skills. It's just you're doing it in a different context. So if you look here, GCSE geography, transnational corporations can bring advantages to the host country. Do you agree with this statement? It's a 9-mark question. A lot of students struggle to get a lot of high marks in this type of question. So if you apply the same technique, you'll be able to kind of get a higher score. Again, 9-mark question, you're evaluating what you need to demonstrate, knowledge and understanding. You do that through blue. Explaining, analyzing your argument, you do that with your orange. Remember, 3 to 4 connectives, and when you're evaluating again, you do all that in green. Same thing you did for history, you can do the same thing here in geography too. So, here's your typical answer. Alright, you've given them time to do a question, they've stopped. You have that conversation with the class. Alright, so have you explained your answer in enough detail? Have you used your effect connectives, the oranges, to make sure your answer is well developed? Have you included enough knowledge and understanding? Did you need to include any facts and figures? And have you evaluated in enough detail? So the students will highlight their answer, and this is what the answer should look like. Okay, so once they've highlighted their answer, they should see blue, they should see a small bit of orange, okay, and some green. So which is a good starting point. So have that conversation with them again. In their arguments, so their arguments for and against, have they developed them enough? If you've included 3 or 4 of those effect connectives, then you know you've done it. So because there's only one of them here, the students will straight away realize, oh, hang on a minute, I haven't developed my argument in enough detail. When you talk about evaluation, okay, go through the evaluation, sentence starters and connectives. The student will see here that they've only answered the question, that they haven't said why or they haven't justified their answer. So they'll know again straight away that they need to improve. Alright, and again, as a teacher, all you're doing here is you're guiding the students along. You're not marking anything. You're not looking at any piece of work in particular. You can do if you want, but you're just asking those questions. And the students are using the visual colours to judge and make a judgment on the quality of their answer to see if it's in enough depth. Alright, and at the same time, they're already thinking how they can improve. So have that conversation with them, give them a chance to improve, and what you should see is an improvement. You should see more oranges, more green, and more blue words highlighted. So in the case of this example, you'll see just exactly that. At the start there's a huge bit about T&Cs, a lot of theory, some examples, which demonstrates more knowledge and understanding. You can see there in the second and third paragraph, the points are well developed. This is because you can see as a result, which results in, okay, third paragraph, this is because, as a result, therefore. So the student straight away now knows that their answer is better quality because their argument is more developed. And even for their evaluation and their conclusion, they've developed it in more detail. You've given them those sentence starters, they've reflected, and they've added them in to improve the overall quality. And again, this is just another typical example. I'm going to look at business studies this time. One of the key words that comes up in business studies is the word analyze. And just remember the difference between analyze and explain in business studies. Analyze, you need to link your answer to the context of the case study. Okay, so if you're given a story about a business, your answer needs to be all about them. This is a 6-mark question. Because you're analyzing, okay, you do not need to include a conclusion. Okay, you don't need to evaluate. Alright, and one of the biggest challenges students come to answering this type of question is they don't link their answer back to the case study enough. Alright, and they lose marks if they don't do it properly. And it's not that they can't do it, it's just that they don't do it. Okay? So, skills needed for this question, blue and orange, I tell the students, okay? Blue for knowledge and understanding, including data from the case study in particular to get those application marks, and explaining and analysing because you're asked to analyse, so making sure you're using your effect connectives. So here is a typical answer. You get students to reflect, okay, did you include enough data from the case study and have you explained your answer in enough detail? And looking at this answer, you can see that the structure is quite good because they have developed their argument in enough detail. However, they haven't answered the question properly because the question was about Krispy Kreme and they needed to take the information from the case study and apply it to the context of their answer. So the structure is good, but the application is not good enough, which means the student will lose marks. So once they've done this activity, they should see for themselves. I have enough orange, which is good. However, I don't have enough blue, so I need to go back and I need to improve. And once they've done that, their answer should look something like this. The structure was already in place, it was good. That wasn't the focus, they just needed to include more information from the case study. It's here, okay, all that blue. So the overall quality of their answer is a lot better, which means you will get a higher mark. Alright, and again, you didn't mark any piece of work, alright? The student merely reflected, they thought about the different skills, the colors helped visualize the mark scheme, what they needed to do to answer the question properly. They identified that they didn't have enough blue, so they improved it, and now because they've done that, they're going to get a higher score.